So the weighted mean is the mean of a data set whose entries have varying weights. Okay, so X bar is defined to be the sum of X multiplied by the weight divided by the sum of the weights. Okay, so on your formula sheet, it's going to be written as the sum of X times W over the sum of W. Okay, so this formula may look a little weird, but hopefully with an example, it'll make more sense. So your GPA average is found by weighted average. It's weighted by credit hours, so grades from last semester. Now, the final grade is a letter, and then the credit hour is a number. So this person got a C in a 3-hour class. They got a D in a 4-hour class. They got a B in a 1-hour class, an A in another 3-hour class, and then a B in a 2-hour class. Okay? So what are we going to do? We're going to find the weighted average here. Determine your GPA. So how do I get the GPA? Okay? So how do we do this? Well, first I need to figure out what the weights are. Okay? So my grades are A, B, C, D, and F, right? That's what we're going to assume. Okay, if I get all A's across the board, what grade GPA will I have? I'll have a 4.0. So an A is equal to 4. A B is equal to 3 points. A C is equal to 2 points. So if I have a 2.0, that's a C average. D is equal to 1 point, and an F gets you 0 GPA points. Okay, so that's how it works. All right, so here's what we're going to do. All right, we're going to convert our letters to numbers. Okay, so everywhere I see a C, I'm going to put a 2. Everywhere I see a D, I'm going to put a 1. Everywhere I see a B, I'm going to put a 3. An A is a 4, and a B is a 3. All right, the X is the value, and the W is the weight. Okay? And so here, this is the grade, is the X value, and then the hours, the credit hours, that's the weight, how much each grade is worth, okay? So the formula says sum X times W divided by the sum of W. That's my X bar. So how do I use that formula here? Well, let's start with the numerator first. So the numerator says I sum each of the X's and the W's. So these are my X's and these are my W's. So the first pair is 2 and 3. So X bar is equal to, well, it's 2 times 3. And then this tells me to sum, so I plus, and what's the next pair? It's 1 and 4. 1 times 4, what's the next pair? 3 and 1. And then the next one is 4 and 3. And then the last one is 3 and 2, okay? Now it's all divided by the sum of the weights. What are my weights? These are all the weights here. And so the weights are 3 plus 4 plus 1 plus 3 plus 2, okay? And so I take this and I simplify. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 1 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. and then 3 times 2 is 6. All over, if I add this together, I get 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, 13. And so in the numerator, this adds to 10, 15, that's 25, 31. So that's 31 over 13. And when I type that in my calculator, 31 over 13 gets me 2.38 roughly. So my GPA for last semester is a 2.4 GPA. Not bad. Okay, 2.4. So more along the lines of what you might see in a class grade. Maybe you have your test, maybe your test in a class, tests make up 70% of the class, all right? Quizzes make up 20%, and then participation, I don't know, whatever, is 10%. All right, so you want it to add up. Your weights should be adding up to a full 100% when you're talking about a grade, right? So say you have an average grade of test of, let's say, 82, okay? And then your quiz grade is like a 91, and then your participation grade is like a 95. All right, so the question is, what is your overall average? Well, how would you do it? Okay, this is a weighted average. The weights are the percentages. Okay, so these are my weights, my W's. The values are the actual averages. Those are my X's. Okay, so to do the average, I do the sum of the X times W divided by the sum of the weights. Okay, so what is this equal to? Well, 70% in decimal form is 0.70, 20% is 0.20, and 10% is 0.10. Okay, so this would be like 70% times my value 82 plus, and then what's the next one? It's the 20% times my value 91, and then the last one is the 10% times the 95 test average, or participation average. And then I divide by the 0.7 plus the 0.2 plus the 0.1. Now, if I type that into my calculator, let me delete this. 0.7 times 82 plus 0.2 times 91, 0.2 times 91 plus, I think it was 0.1 times 95, right? Yeah. And I hit enter, I get 81 or 85.1. And then if I add all these up, I get 1. So if I divide something by 1, it's just the number that I divided by, or that I divided. And so this is my average. Okay, so that would be how you would get your average. Okay, so say, in the future, if you have a class where it breaks it down like this, you don't have to say, Mr. Professor, how do we do this? I don't know. I'm sorry. So you can actually calculate it yourself. Okay, so calculate it yourself, and maybe, they'll be impressed.